It's blinking. Okay, good.
Go
Excellent.
ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. I'm excited to be here myself. It's my first ACPE. I'm Julia Fulmer, and I'm an account executive with Guide K-12. And I have the pleasure of speaking with you today. Well, these guys do. I don't know if you've met these guys before. Yeah, a little bit. They're going to be talking today about how they're using Guide K-12. This is Joe Morlock here with Lake Oswego School District, and also Mark Pinstrom of Highline. We got Oregon and Washington represented.
To Portland?
I am in Portland. Yeah, our company's out of Minneapolis, but I have the pleasure of living in the Northwest. So let's see here. We can go ahead and click through here.
No, go ahead.
We just got a little mini introductory slides here for you, and then we'll let them take over. Well, actually, would you like to talk on this part, or
No.
go ahead? This is just a little introduction about Highline Schools, just so you get a little landscape of who they are. Good-sized district, 21,000 students, 34 schools.
It's actually 42 if you count my small learning communities.
Oh, yeah. Plus, you have all those students that are outside of the district for that aeronautics program. Lots of educational opportunities from early childhood to college prep. And the interesting part, I think what's fun about these two districts talking here today is they both have a very unique center in the middle of their district. In this case is the Seatac Airport. And as we flip over to Lake Oswego, a much smaller district, but right in the middle, of course, is the lake. It's interesting, the dynamic of having that geography right in the middle of a district. A little bit smaller, 7,000 students. Top-ranking school district in the country. Lake Oswego continues to outshine in so many ways. And so they have about 10 schools, and they're in the Portland area. So with Guide K-12, we're here to help you streamline your decision-making, taking multiple streams of data and bringing them onto a map, overlaying your boundaries, taking your student information system data, county data, whether it's voting data or even birth data you can bring in, put that on a map. And so there's so many different ways to use Guide K-12. So from, of course, analyzing boundaries, if you need to repurpose a school, create scenarios and figure out the best solution for your district. Even emergency responsiveness is used quite frequently as well with Guide K-12. So as you're thinking of that, it's okay. lots of different users are also utilizing Guide K-12 because of all the different ways using it. Really, we call it GIS for the rest of us. So it's meant for, oh, did we move? Yeah, there we go. So lots of different users in the district. So superintendent, front office personnel, task groups. I was mentioning the emergency teams, and all of you. So lots of different.
We forgot to put on there.
Yeah.
Really is, while we have community parents and realtors, we don't talk about it from a transportation aspect. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Okay, very good. Yep, even the community, like parents and real estate agents, will also have access in one way, just one way. So let's go ahead there, next one. So many benefits, and this is what really, they're going to be pointing this out, showing that live here in a minute. But it's super easy, as I was saying, GIS for the rest of us. Also, multiple data sets in one place. Just bringing all that together can really help tell the story of your data, making it easier when maybe emotions are running high, when changes are coming in a district, and be able to paint that picture, help the community be on board with what you're working toward, and hopefully enhance that conversation to be a higher quality one. And so these are just quite a few of the benefits here. And then we have a lot of so many testimonials, and we would encourage you to talk to as many of our customers as you'd like. We have quite a few across the country, 2 here in the room, and there's a few more here at the conference. And we are well known for having ease of use when it comes to data integration and getting the implementation up and running in a pretty easy way. So about 4 to 6 weeks. And from here, I'll let you take over.
You want to talk a little bit about your use while I get my database up?
You ready to rock? Yep. Bring it up. All right, we're actually going to go live, so you know how live demos go.
Yeah.
Everybody turn off your live. So quickly, as Mark gets his data, we're going to use this because we got more interesting things. She did mention, Julie mentioned earlier, using it for realtors, which I'm wearing a Century 21 jacket, so I know what I'm talking about. But it's actually really one of those things.
I didn't even notice that.
Around where my realtor said I was buying a house here, and it's really it's over there, and so we actually have done outreach with the local realtors, like, please use this site, please direct your customers to the site, because it always has the exact boundary. If it doesn't seem like a big deal, it's really a big deal on it. When you're doing boundary changing, going through that small piece of tell right now, if you've ever been through, you know what it's like. You never want to do it again. Thanks. And but that's one of those things where you often deal in legend, and so there's legend and myth, and then there's reality. Well, not reality. There's data, because everybody's perception is their own reality. But so when we're having those conversations around either boundary, or if you're deciding to possibly reconfigure schools, or if you just want to run some scenarios to do that, Guide K-12 allows you to do that very quickly. I'm going to draw a little polygon, boom, boom, boom. What would happen if we go over here? Oh, good, that's how many students would go there. That's why it doesn't make sense to have this road be the boundary. It makes sense to go through the backyards. Or it makes sense to go through the road, even though, like, oh my God, my neighbor's going to their school. Yeah, we know. But it makes the most sense. So they're really great ways to do just scenario-based planning. Like, what would happen if? Any school board members in here? Good. So if you often get those questions, well, what would happen? You know, they start to wonder, and then pretty soon you're just watching your workload go up as they begin to wonder on camera, and then you have to come back and try to produce something. It happens a lot. But the good news is, because they will wonder about these things, especially during boundaries, but other times when they're thinking about other big changes in your district, well, they can wonder, and it's actually not as difficult for you to produce that information. Now, counting by hand is fun, depending on the size of your district or the size of your team. But rarely we'll do those things. Is this your Find Your Address page?
This is the Find
So
Your
this
Address.
is the public-facing part of Guide K-12, and you can turn on different layers. This is one of the ones that we use as well.
So if you notice, it's populating out with my addresses. It only has the addresses inside my district. So we have taken our transportation data and we've dumped it into here so that it has every address that is GIS from the U.S. Postal Service in here, which means there may not be somebody who lives there today, but tomorrow there may be somebody. And what we'll do is we will regularly update that with them. So if I wanted to find that address, what it does do is it provides me a list of the schools. Now we're in the process of revising this a little bit, and the revision that we're doing is to put more data assigned to this particular item. So instead of taking me out to Highline Schools, it's going to have a different landing page that's on this page that has some of that same data. So it's going to talk about how many teachers are there, socioeconomic of the school. It's going to have pictures of the school. You can rotate through there. And that's something that we actually can do. We don't have to necessarily have the company do it. They build us a little widget, so to speak, and then that shows up. In fact, down here on this map, because I'm in full scale, excuse me. I'm not exactly sure. It could be because I played with the resolution. So, right here, if I... Oh, the door is right there. All right, so I click on this. This is now a short brief cut. I was talking, brief information. This little widget is going to change, and when that widget changes, it's actually going to have the photos. It's going to have the languages. It's going to have discipline data. And we're going to show everything that we can show that legitimately we're allowed to show and feel is important for a parent when they make a decision. So now we have two tools on our website. We have the transportation one where they can actually go and see what bus number is going to arrive there, because we don't have that linked in here and we don't want to, and there are political reasons for that. And then this one, which is Find Mine, and this is where Joe was saying the realtors drive their clients into this and say, you want to find out where your kids are going to go to school, go here. Now we're a dual immersion school district, so you only see 3 schools up there. That's a work that I'm working on with Guide K-12 as well, so they'll now show 2 schools for every service area, because we allow the students to opt out of a dual immersion school into another neighboring school. So we have 2 elementaries that go together, and one is dual and one is not. And if the parents don't want them in the dual immersion, they can cross-enroll into the other one. And so we're going to list that out as well so that they see there's dual immersion school.
Do you have many people taking you up on that?
No, well, yes, we have a couple. We have a Somali base in one of our schools, and they don't want to learn Spanish. So, yes, we do have a, right.
Before you go on from that, so one other important part of what he's talking about by putting up this school data that people can compare, they're going to compare anyway. And so they can do it at myschoolsucks.com or whatever they want to look it up on, or they can do it on your site. And so if you're in control of the data, it makes the most sense. If you're putting out the data that you can explain, because they're going to see it's going to come from U.S. News and World Report, and they don't read the fine print that says, oh, that's 2 years in arrears, by the way, and it actually only uses these metrics. People don't read those things. And so by you having control over that, you get them to the right school. This is the school I'm looking at, or these are the houses I'm looking at. This is the data that the school district is presenting me, and you can explain that data because you know your data. You can say, this is what it means, and this is what our graduation rate really is, not what the other thing gets reported to in the Oregonian, because I'm sure she's only half listening when she's publishing the article. But each one of those things matters. And so if you think about this, so while we're looking at geovisual, and that's the background, the foreground of it is that you're presenting the data that you know is correct. And that's in the information war over what school districts are what. This is really the most important, one of the most important values is that you get to present the real data, the real story, which is hugely valuable, at least in my case, and I think yours.
Okay, yes, it is. It's hugely valuable in multiple ways, and what's more valuable is you understanding your data. So you have this great view of your data, right, from spreadsheets and aerial pictures, and you kind of know where everything is. Well, you probably also have the ability to look at your service areas like this, right? So you see where all your service. This happens to be my elementary, or maybe I can just on the fly click and look at my middle schools, or if I want, I can click on my high. Do you have that? Anybody here have that? Okay, one of you. Now, let's go back and say, I'm going to increase my page here a bit. Let me go back and I'm just going to leave my pre-K because I only want to show my pre-K, and I'm going to go in here to students. And I'm just going to actually do clear without selection because I want to see something here. I want to see how many students I have. So as of last night, I've got 20,378 Highline students. Every one of those little dots up there represent a student or students. And if you look at it when I get to the right thing here, you're going to see on the side here, free and reduced lunch. How many kids per school? Breakdown by our state reporting. I also have by our reporting, because I'm one of the only districts in the state of Washington who break it out further than what the state has. I actually break it out into every demographic option I can break it out into. So you'll see that in a little bit. But every one of those little dots represents a kid. And if I scroll down here on this side, here's the key. Okay? So later on, we're going to break it out, and I'm going to show you. I can search for all my aviation high school students, and I can tell you exactly where they come from. I have a student who flies in to school every day. How close do you think that student is to school? Not very close if they fly in. All right? So this information now is starting to give you that GIS view, right? Now, you want me to take
Just
that?
hold it when you're talking. Yeah. Just hold it. You get, well, yeah. We get stand right.
All right, so now if I scroll up on this side here, I have the ability to click on Identify Students. Now that data on the right-hand side is actually actionable data. Meaning if I go over there and I find one of those kids, if I hover over it and I click on it, well, I obviously didn't click on the kid. I got to do it on here so I can actually see it because I'm trying to drive it through there.
Now I know exactly where that child lives. If I click on the View More Data details, it'll actually go in and give me additional details. The details that I want to have in there are somewhat proprietary and somewhat, let's just say PII data. So if I don't go into them, excuse me, but I really don't want to give too much information on a child. So inside these particular items, though, I now have the ability to look at all these different kids. Now, I did a query solely based on everything. I said, tell me the whole shooting match. If I don't want to have that entire thing in here, I can come down in here and I can go to the set filters. Now I have the ability to change my filter sets. Okay, so you saw that I did every student, K through 12, in district and out of district. So you saw kids who are coming to me from another district where they live. Maybe they're McKinney-Vento kids, so they're living there, or maybe they're cross-enrolled because we got a different program inside the school district at that particular, that they particularly need. But if I wanted to, I could actually come inside here and I could select each individual grade level that I want. I can go in and I can select the gender that I want. I can select free and reduced if they're receiving. The state state reportable codes for ethnicity. I can choose, do they get special ed services or not? Do they receive ELL services or not? Do they receive title services or not? Are they in a dual language site? Are they participating in a dual language program? Student attendance program, meaning all the different types of attendance that I can actually give to them. What country of origin are they coming from? So these are all the countries that we have originating students from. And so we constantly have to update that. Okay. Primary language. These are all the primary languages that we have put in here. Now, Stosh, what do you have, 145 languages or something like that? 138. We have our first languages, we have our second languages, and we have all the preferred languages inside here. So there are more than 138 inside here. There are more than 145 in here. And it's probably because we have some family members who speak a dialect. And so it's a little different. So we include emergency contact information when we grab that data. Because if we're going to send out correspondence, we want to know what we're talking about in terms of correspondence. Correspondence. There's that same list again, except it's a little bit more because we deal again with the, we break it down a little bit. Next one, primary ethnicity. This is where we break out. U.S. Department of Education has a consultant who's actually doing a major write-up on why school districts are not able to report on just the 7 ethnicity breakdowns. And so I happen to be speaking at an RTM conference, I don't know if Austin or California or somewhere, and there happened to be a US DOE person inside the room, and she came up to me afterwards and she said, I have a question, how many ethnicities are you breaking out for? And I said, well, I don't know, let's go look. So I happened to pull it up while I was at the conference. It was one of our, we were at the same conference. And I pulled it up and I showed them all these. And they said, why do you break it out so much? And I said, because I have to. My district is too diverse. I think I'm quite different than you in that particular.
Slightly more diverse, yes.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Then I have resident district, because I have a lot of students who come to me from another district because they are attending either Aviation High School, Puget Sound Skills Center, or some other school. Then I have transfer status. then I have my pre-K school, my elementary, my middle, and my high schools. And I think that's the last one. So if I were to now take any one of those, I can break them down now, and I can start to get granular data, and I could have all the male students who are African American, who are attending elementary school, who receive Title I service, who are also free and reduced. And it would do is it would pop up a list of those kids, and now I have a spreadsheet view of that data that I can use for mailings. I can give it to the school to say these are the kids that you're dealing with. Some of this data I don't allow school personnel to play around in because there's too much data there and they may get confused, and also PII. I don't want PII data out there, you know, free and reduced lunch. I don't necessarily want them to know all that. But there's a lot of data I can provide them easily, and we build a lot of different ways that we can take data from this tool and incorporate it into the other areas. Do you want to talk a little bit?
No, it's just that, so your data systems, you can do this, right? Some of you are wizards with spreadsheets and pivot tables, and you can build all those things. I think the other part of this is that, so you're going to check off some of these boxes because you're going to get these questions, but you're also going to know sort of where they live, right, and the areas they go, and it's actually, it's easier to show other people who may not be quite as good at spreadsheets, but who are willing to do a little bit of work in some of your offices to be able to pull this data for you. So other people say, hey, I can do that if you show me how to click the right filters, and so it's easier to do that this way. Again, this is your data that you provide. I mean, it's already in your sys, and it's doing a daily or a nightly load, and so you always have current data except for today, which is pretty good. And it allows you to be able to answer some of these questions. I secretly sometimes have it up when I know that questions are going to be coming, and I can answer questions. Makes me look like a rock star. Oh, yeah, looks like they're going to ask about this. Yeah, how many kindergartners are coming from Tigard Tualatin into Lake Oswego who are going to River Grove Elementary? Looks like we have 22, and 14 of them are in the Spanish immersion. Now, I wouldn't have that really necessarily at that quickly, but those are the kinds of questions you can answer. Those are the kind of explorations you can do, and you have a lot more filters than we do, but as you add those filters, you can add student assessment data, you can add whatever you want in there, so you can start to look at, do you have other trends, and then do the mark thing, which is crazy with all those.
I do a lot with data. So when you're looking at this one, I just switched over to map view. These are some of the maps that I now have added in here. So what I did was I grabbed all of my voter demographic data from the state of Washington, and I loaded that in here. So now I know all my precinct data and whether or not they voted for or against something. Do I know the individual voters? No. Do I know how many turned out for a precinct? Yes. Do I know the percentage? Yes. Do I know whether it passed or failed? Yes. All I have to do is click on here, and what it'll do is it'll put the layer. I can look at the color, and I can tell by the color right now what I have. If I add in the labels, now I get the percentage. Then, if I come over here and I click on it, it gives me the detail. Now, I could go online to their data source, and I could look at their data, and I could then extrapolate it, or I can now use this data with my data to make references, which is what I do. So now I'm going to remove the label, and I'm going to go back over to the students, and you'll see that I now have the label associated with, or I mean, not the label, but I have the precinct associated on my map. And if I wanted to, I can then find out how many kids are inside there by elementary, middle, or high by doing searches. And I can do that by multiple ways. I can do a rudimentary way of doing it, which is called a draw polygon. And I basically just click wherever I want to go through here. And what it's doing is it's just putting a reference point. And when I get to the end, I just double click. Now it tells me there's 502 kids inside that area. Now, that was a rudimentary way to do it. There's a lot faster way. But when I'm sitting in a demographic meeting, like we're trying to pass a bond, and we're trying to build 2 new middle schools and move an elementary school that was built in 1918. I have people who do not want that 1918 building to be demolished. They are fighting it like crazy. They are the reds on here. Now, the big red is Seatac Airport. So this is Seatac International Airport. I have, unlike you, I have the rich of the rich and the poor of the poor in my district. So I've got the sound here, and along the sound I've got anywhere from the $1 million to $5 million homes. You go over to, it's right here actually, right around in here. It's First Avenue, goes up through. First Avenue is my breaking point. If you live on the east side of First Avenue, you are in trailer homes, apartments, houses that are 250,000 instead of the 3 million. However, I'm an urban center, so my $250,000 homes are all smaller homes. I mean, they are 1,300 square feet, 1,200 square feet. There's 3 feet behind the building, 3 feet beside on either side, and then you got the street, and you got a garage behind your house. So the kids don't have any place, you know, it's all scrunched. I also have, can't believe I'll say this on recording, but we have Prostitution Row, because I have US Highway 99. And US Highway 99 is hotels, it is car rental places, it is fast food joints, a lot of homeless that live in that area, and Kent School District and Tukwila School District, Federal Way, and Seattle. Okay, so we probably share maybe in the course of the year, a couple hundred kids will swap, maybe even more than that, just because of the way parents move. And in this particular area, I'm able to look at that demographic data much better. City of Des Moines came to me and said, confidentially, we're going to be evicting a mobile home trailer court that has 36 units in it. We need to know how many kids are going to be inside that. So I went and I drew it out, gave it back to him. It was 117, I think, students. And so they're basically, City of Des Moines is going to level it because they sold the property off to a developer.
Following up on something you were saying there, can you look at mobility?
I can. Because I've built the system to give me some history.
So you have like entry dates and exit dates?
Yeah. I don't have all of it in here yet because they're still working on stuff. Their developers are, I wouldn't say upset with me because they like what I asked for, but they're also not able to develop as fast as what I'm asking for. So I'm a huge data geek in that respect. I'm constantly looking for things that are going to improve our view of the data.
What about changes over time in analytics of looking at changes? I mean, you know, a lot of times things probably don't change, but, you know, like in New York, there's areas that were poor historically. The real estate values have gone through the roof, so the people there, you know, selling the property for a lot of money, which is good for them. So you do have changes that can occur. Obviously, this is more what's the latest in time, but if you want to do analysis and look at the changes.
You're just jumping way ahead on us, aren't you? You're just jumping way ahead on us. Okay, there's another view. You're looking at student view right now. There's what we call enrollment view, and you build scenarios. Those scenarios are snapshots in time. So we can build as many scenarios as we want, and actually Julia's going to do a couple of those. But when you're doing a snapshot in time, if I'm at one of those boundary meetings, I'm going to talk about boundary meeting, okay, and then we'll kind of go towards you. I know that I need to put a middle school down around here, and I know I need to put a middle school up around in here. I'm a 4-boundary middle school district, and I'm going to go to 6. So I've got mom and dad who are fighting because I went to that school, I want my kids to go to that school. Well, I went to that school, I want my kids. No, I want them to go to a brand new school. So now I'm dealing with that issue of, the politics. In the meeting, like he said, he's sitting in a meeting with somebody who says, well, how many kids are blah, blah, blah? 22. If I build those scenarios, I can actually have multiple scenarios built for that meeting, and I can say, this is where we're going to build our school, and this is the boundary, and these are the 600 kids who are going to go to the school. And Ed says, well, what if you moved that line over to this street? Good thing you asked, Ed. We pull up scenario 1, which is a prediction of Ed's request that we moved it over to First Avenue, and we now see there's 425 kids in there. So now we just went from 600 to 425 because we moved that boundary line, and we're able to show that with a pictorial view without them seeing the individual PII data.
Why is urban planning doing this?
Why isn't what?
Urban planning.
Well, Urban Planet does kind of do it, but they just don't get into those meetings with us, because it's capital facilities advisory meetings. Okay, you want to drive something?
Before we get to that though, so for those of you planning, you're working on a bond, and we're also trying to work on a construction bond, and that's one of those things that this kind of information helps you. You have your voter precincts, if they've voted or if they haven't. So you can get all the data comes from the county. They've got all your elections office information, and you can actually see which houses you should target. People who never vote, probably not your best choice. So you look at the people who voted over time and these are the people we want to target. Many of you probably hear the stat that only 30% of the homes in your whole community boundaries are the ones that have kids, and everybody else is non-kid. It's the same stat for most people. It's somewhere in that range. About 30% of homes actually have the kids that go to your schools. Everybody else does not have kids in schools. But it's also good to be able to see some of that too. So we have arguments about, interestingly, Lake Oswego, the school district, the people in the schools talk about the north and the south side schools. The great thing is that the wealth is divided east and west, and the lake is diagonal. So it's actually sort of a riot, as I'm new there, and I'm like, you guys are into geometry, they're messed up. So using tools like this also to help them see that, because especially people who have grown up there, they know that area well. It's not that huge, and they can look at it and say, oh, that's where this is, and that's where the other ring is, and it does make sense for us to do this rather than that. There's nothing like fighting stupidity with a little bit of data, at least.
So Julia's going to drive you through scenarios. When she's done with scenarios, we'll go back into the student view, and we'll show you a little bit more of the student view, the things that will make more sense after you see how she does the scenario. All right?
And actually, to address the question about snapshots, this is the spot where you can easily see that. We take snapshots on a monthly basis of your data, so you can always go back and historical data. Even as a new client, we put in previous years if you'd like. So we're going to create a new middle school with this data and this scenario, and as Mark was saying that you can create, oh, of course, I might have to create a new name. So I've done that too many times. We'll try that again. We'll call it Mark Middle School. There you go. I don't have that one in there. All right. So just like we were looking at before in this view, we're showing the middle school boundaries for this example district, and we'll bring up all the students on here. And just to keep it interesting, well, first you can see there's a lot of inter-district transferring going on. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and change some assignments here. The parents will love it because we're going to send all the transfer students to their home areas.
Nobody gets upset.
No.
Nobody.
We'll go ahead and send them home there. And so when the screen refreshes, all of the dots of color of students are all now sent to their corresponding assigned school. They're all perfectly matched there by color. And actually, I think Mark did mention this, but what I love about this view is that you cannot drill down into the student data here. So when you are having those meetings and they're asking those questions, and you can't be accused of any favoritism that might happen. So I love that part. It's all about what's right for the district and the data. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll add a school. And we're just going to put a spot on the map where we want this new school to be. We'll give it an ID. Nice.
Finstrom failures.
Nice. What would that be? Yeah. Jeez. Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, they're Fantastics. Maybe they're the Fantastics. Sure. There we go. Okay. Nice. All right. So we're going to. How about those Mariners? Okay. We're going ahead and draw on here, and we're going to select these students. Now, I am being fairly broad here. I'm just grabbing a bunch of students in the south end here. We're going to change their assignment. Now, normally you would have some logic, of course, for why these students are going to be transferred. We're going to student assignments and areas are going to be changed to Mark Middle School. We're going to, maybe it's, we're going to call it the South region to New Middle School. We click OK. So it's going to refresh again, and it's going to give it a new color for that new school. Tells us some statistics on the left in our dashboard over here. And then what's also great is down below, it's tracking all of our actions. This is what we call the console. So if you make any mistakes, you can click undo that, or just to help describe your logic later when you're talking to your colleagues. So you can save these and then come back later and work at it when you're ready.
So think about that public meeting that you're sitting in, and they're saying, well, why did you do it that way? You just got rid of 22 kids because you didn't like them with that action. Okay, revert it. I don't care, we'll revert it. We'll continue on. The whole idea is to talk through it with them. We still have ultimate control as a school district about where they're going to go, but we can play with the data and we can show them. Logic means we need to have those 22 kids in there, because if we don't, another school is going to be not up by 22, they might be up by 65. And why?
The other thing down there too, when you're talking about the scenario, and you briefly mentioned it, but to be able to talk about the steps you took to get to the data you're showing them, really good. First, we sent all the kids to their home school they would normally go. Then we put a middle school at this location, and then we reassign. So, because it's, I don't know about you, I just click around. At some point, you get to this place, and you'll actually have the list of it. It's nice to be able to just explain what you're showing.
And this is where you can also, I wanted to show you down to the household level, and we haven't really done that much for you yet on that, but you can literally select a very specific group. You can also keep track of your neighborhood groups, make sure they're staying together. But we could move this particular group now to a different school. Lots of different ways to change and make sure you're on that correct side of the street when you're building the boundary. So
These are the kids you don't like, is that why?
maybe that's it, yeah. They have their issues down there.
Okay. All
All right, but then what you can do right away is go into some reporting and see, what impact have you made with these changes. So, and see that pretty quickly. And I love this part because, if you do realize this isn't quite working out, it's just a few clicks that got you here, and you can go back and make a change. So here we're looking at grade level, the before and after changes for each school.
How fast that responded. You're sitting in that meeting and you made a change. You don't have to wait until the next meeting to report back to them. Personally, when I'm sitting in my Seatac meeting, I don't run live scenarios in front of everybody. I run them off screen and then I put up the results. But that's partially because I'm still also feeling I want to make sure I do it right, I want to make sure I'm considering everything, I don't want to click something and then show them something appropriate.
I just brought up the demographics report as well. This is also helpful to see that right away. Free and reduced special needs, ESL. And then compare it to the district.
Could you change the grade configuration of existing schools and play out a scenario from there?
Definitely, yes.
So, excellent point. We
Do you
are
want-
a
here.
K6 elementary.
we're going to K-5.
And when we go to K-5, we're going to move all of our sixth graders into middle school. Parents are livid about that because a fifth grader is going to end up going up to middle school 1 year. But then you have the others who say it's the best thing that could happen for the kids. So that is in our scenarios right now because we're saying we have to build 2 new middle schools. Well, what happens if we move sixth grade up? You know, we now have to change things. So there's a lot of data that's being presented right now. And I'm not going to say that we converted all of our naysayers because we have a number of them who will be out petitioning against us for everything that we do. And they're on the Capital Advisory Committee. You know, we invited the public to participate. We had an open process. 75 people could get on there. That included alternates. So every area has an alternate. And so there's some staff, some students, and then it's predominantly from the precincts. And, you know, they're required to be at every meeting. If they're not at every meeting, then they're booted and the alternate takes their position. And it's because we're going through this data, and if you're not at that meeting and we're talking about data, how can you make a value judgment without seeing the other data? So even the naysayers have to kind of put aside their biases. They're not happy, but it is one thing. And we have small learning communities as well. So I said the 42 schools. We have these small learning communities. We're going through the process right now trying to determine if we're going to collapse those back into a single school. So we have 2 at one campus, 2 high schools at one campus, and 3 at another, and whether or not those 5 schools will become 2 schools. Ricardo?
It's going to be related to your question. I just happen to know Highline a little bit, so it's not there.
Renton, yes.
How do you justify, for example, open enrollment to one of those schools that you mentioned, and to say to somebody, no, we went to a lottery system for you to come to?
Well, if you saw, we went lottery this year with our choice schools, and it raised a lot of dander. But Aviation High School used to be kind of the elite school. The only way to get in there was if you knew somebody who worked in aviation. We're supposed to have over 50% of the students in there from Highline, and we only had 1 year we had 23%. So it wasn't fair for our kids either. So the state actually was getting ready to challenge us on that. So we went through a lottery process. So now any of our choice schools, you have to lottery in. So it'd be the same way. So we will end up extending that and lotterying in all of those. There you go.
Okay.
Are you
Well,
okay?
yeah, I'm doing fine. I was just kind of moving things around a little bit, show you some other, because we didn't really get into the parcel data or some of the vote. We saw
You wanna
some
show
voting.
parcel data?
Yeah, we'll
That's a good
take a
one.
look at some parcel data here. Let me make sure we can see them. There we go. So this is taking a look at, the homeowners in the area. And so I was kind of showing the drawing tools. There's lots of different ways to get snapshots, and drawing different ways of doing that here. We can have circles and all kinds of different ways to grab the data. But as you can see is with our filters, we could say what kind of dwelling type is this, residential versus commercial, agricultural. And so we can see that by color. And we can also see the estimated market value as well of this neighborhood. And then even export out all of this information. These are the homeowners of this neighborhood. And you can include the estimated market value. You can export that out. This is the example I was when I mentioned earlier about the emergency responsiveness option, where if it was your student data and you had something going on in the area, you wanted to alert a specific group, you can draw where that's happening, and then send it to your auto dialer.
These are important up here, those 4 buttons. Okay, now I can see a PDF file. I can make a shape file and drop it back into my transportation software if I want to. I don't know if you guys do anything with shape files. So we use Edgelog. I'm not always happy with Edgelog. I think there's better transportation software out there. But if I build a shapefile in here, so I've now changed my attendance boundaries, I build the shapefile, I drop it into my transportation software. Instead of paying them $120 an hour for 50 hours to build a shape. What's that? Yeah. Yeah. I can now do that shapefile and give it back to them. They'll validate it. I'll still pay them for the money to validate it, make sure it's right. But my ideas are, I'm going to start saving the district money. Yeah, it cost me a little bit of money, but you know what I just saved? Not having them do this work. I just paid for them to do their work 5 times over. So that's the value. And transparency. I'm kind of getting sick and tired of the word transparency, you know, transparent data. But yet it's true. If a parent and the community member doesn't understand what we do, or even our own teaching staff or principals don't understand, they make value decisions based upon themselves, not the data. And I'm trying to force the decisions into based on data, not on personal preference. I may have a personal preference, but I got to put my bias aside for the value of the district. You ready?
Yep, I clicked the wrong button here.
I'm sorry, I have my screen too small for you.
I'm doing just fine. I just was bringing up another example, so we'll go ahead and make sure we can see those student dots on here as well.
By the way, I used to teach in Oswego area schools, which is
Oh, that's right. You were like of the area here. I forgot.
right here, Oswego area schools. That's where I was a 4th grade teacher.
That's so awesome. You did almost have Mark Middle School there. Yeah, that's right. Unless they got moved up. So this is, I was just bringing in an example. You were talking about shape files. This was a shape file brought in of the light rail route that was built through the district. So this is showing all of the students that live within a half mile of the light rail. So for communication, you could filter on that and have a different message for the students that are in elementary versus high school. And you can export this out again, and we can do the current selection. I thought I'd show you real quickly here the mailing labels, because they, well, there's a lot of things when we haven't. The computer's not used to me. So this will, oh, it's right, it's wanting to open. Well, anyway, it opens mailing labels right away. Go ahead. If I just put here.
Yep, pop up.
There we go. Aha, there we go. So then there's the mailing labels of those students that are within a half mile of the light rail. So you can have student data or any type of data attached to any geographical layer within your district. So many, many ways to slice and dice and get answers quickly.
We're going through the light rail right now. The light rail is halfway through the district. It's moving its way south from the federal way. They'll be impacted shortly by it. What we're able to do is talk about the noise mitigation with parents. So even the cities are talking to us to get data from us because they want to know what kind of data we have. So I have to be careful. I have a lot of data sharing agreements that are in place with each of the municipalities. Because I don't want to give them data that is beyond right.
Just time check, we have about 10 minutes left. I want to make sure we're going to be burning questions first, and then, because we've got more to show you, we can just
Sure.
keep going. But are there any burning questions we haven't gotten to?
Quick one, you were talking about sensitive data and you showing the spreadsheets and what have you. Is there a way to auto filter if I get 1 or 2 free and reduced lunch fees or something so it's looking at anything, or do I have to do the filter? So that I'm not sharing that.
He wants,
Well,
identifiable data.
Yeah.
if you select free and reduce as a checkbox, it's going to show up. If you don't have it selected, it won't show on that report.
But there's no way to filter.
Not my.
Well, we can have credentials set up based on your login, so different levels of access based on during implementation.
But it's probably on or off.
Correct. Yeah, it's a good question about.
While she's writing that down, one of the things that.
Yeah, I am writing it.
You haven't seen satellite view yet. You're only
Oh,
looking
oh,
at
gosh,
grid.
thanks.
So they have satellite view. So if you're used to looking at it from a visual perspective of what it looks like, the trees and everything, switching into satellite view to get a better view.
That's what I have to do when I did that property search for
And there it is.
somebody else. That has a question. It's hosted at their site.
So,
Now, I have the data also. I keep all the data every night on my site.
FERPA compliance?
Yeah, it's all signed off.
So one of your slides say that mapping the student performance data. What kind of performance data?
Whatever data
Whatever you
I
want.
want to put in.
You could do work samples, you could do Valentine's hearts projects, anything that you're
You can
tracking.
take the data out of your
Yeah.
SIS and pump it up into there. So if you've got assessments in SIS, pump those up in there.
Anything populate in the answer.
Oh, taking the data. So, my student information system is Eliminate. I'm the only one in the, other than the charter schools in Washington, and Oregon, I think, that has.
You say eliminate?
Yeah. And, the benefit of that is, it actually is fully customizable as well. So I can take the data from my SIS, and I can churn it around in my SIS and spit it back up into here. So I have SBA data. We have what's called the Highline benchmark assessment data, which is our precursor to taking the SBA. So we have all kids go through an assessment to determine whether or not they're actually ready for the SBA. And then we store that, it gives us analysis. So.
What else, man, Bernie?
So, a couple of questions. Well, for background, we have been doing this same sort of thing with MapPoint,
Yeah.
Microsoft's product, for years, since
Yeah.
I started with the district in 2001 or something like that. It's now no longer available, and the data is aging out. And one of our challenges in our school district is we're vastly growing out of our original boundaries, and so there are neighborhoods that just don't exist on that map. Can you tell me how old the data is that we're looking at on this map? Like,
definitely. So we're loading your student data on a nightly basis. So
map data.
when the map data,
Streets
right,
Google.
and then that's coming from Google, and we are loading things from the county about quarterly. So it does depend on the county, but if they're supplying that more often, then we'll do it more often. But it's generally about quarterly.
The other question I would have is, right now our administrators, the directors of elementary education or secondary education, are the ones, sort of spitballing these maps and saying, I think our new school should be here, and I think the boundary should look like this, So is that something that those administrators could still
They can do.
tackle in here, or is it?
No, they can do it. And the great thing that you talked about before, Julie, was about setting credentials, so you can give them access to what they need, but not all the access. And then, but yeah, they can get in here. We trained our central office and principals just to play around with this thing, because they can go through, it can fumble through and get a lot of that information.
They can
and then,
do the scenario building.
right.
Okay.
And scenario building, yeah.
Once they build that scenario is then theirs, and Joe can make another one that's identical with just one street over. I used MapPoint for a number of years until MapPoint dropped off, and I had to come up with a different solution. I couldn't, and so I ended up switching over.
Yeah, there is very little option.
Yeah, Jennifer.
So does that granularity include things like, okay, so you've got your students here, say you want to just say, yes, there's a student here, not any names or anything, but if you want to give somebody access to look at
Yes.
where the students are, but eliminate all of
Yes.
any specific.
They can't identify,
Exactly, that's exactly what
so
I'm talking about.
they can't zoom in and make a
Yeah,
prediction
yes,
or
there's-
any of that.
There's Johnny, a student is there.
Yeah. Somebody else, yeah.
How long did you implement this?
2 months?
Yeah.
I'm probably fast tracking it more than what most people.
Yeah, some districts go right in 3 days.
Oh, well, I guess I'm not fast tracking it. You weren't supposed to say that, so now I'm going to push your developers a little bit more.
You were way more complex.
I do have,
That was really a thorough one.
yeah, I do have probably 15 data elements going into mine that other people don't have.
Yes.
I have a lot of complexity in that respect. So,
Very thorough.
I mean, honestly, when I sat down with them, first thing I said is, well, it needs to do this. Well, we can't do that. I said, figure out how, because I need that. Okay, we'll do it. And then it was, can you contact the city and or the county and get me all the voter demographic data? Well, that's not our responsibility. I said, yes, it is. It's your responsibility, not mine. So they did it. I didn't go get that data. It's all public information. They have to normalize it anyway in some respects to put it in there. So why should I deal with it first? Right?
Yep.
See, you heard it from the vendor. Can you say that again? The mic's on.
Mark's the best.
Joe's the best.
Joe's the best.
Come on now.
You're right, it was the failure. Yeah, that's true.
You guys have anything you want to wrap up with on this one?
Well, I don't know, any other questions? Or, I mean, there's so much to get into, so.
So I kind of have a unique situation. Actually, my students come from all over the state of Washington.
Doesn't matter.
So
Okay.
what type of data, I would have a gigantic map.
You would.
Take your SIS data, Ed, and you drop it into this system, and it'll put a dot wherever they are in the state of Washington.
So say I have, because we only have 60 some odd kids that show up to our school every week. But we serve 1,500, 1,200 statewide. So some not your, well, you could actually, because I have some that come from Oregon. But I could have some of my students that are in yours that are teachers that come from you.
And you do.
Probably most of them. But how can we take, is there cross data, is there a way to share data between,
Me and you.
yeah, saying, okay, I have a teacher that serves one of your students. Where does that student go? What middle school are they going to be going into? High school are they going into? To help us say, okay, we know the student's going to be here, and getting your teachers aware that a blind student is coming to their classroom instead of showing up.
So I know you have 3 in my district that I think of. I don't know how to do that one off the top of my head.
But I mean, is
I'm
that
sure
a
I can figure it
possibility?
out.
So you're talking about having students transferring from outside the district, and being able to see them on the map.
Actually, my teacher's serving them in his district as a secondary.
Well, if it's got an address and it's mappable. I mean, so really that's what it comes down to.
Right.
So,
Take it out of the SIS.
yep.
I just gotta figure out how to make it that he sees information related to the kids. That's what you want. So, are you trying to actually sell every Washington school district out of Guide K-12? Because that's what you're working on.
That's
Or even if you're not within it, is this information that, boundaries, is that public information or is that in-district information? That's one thing I'm not aware of. I'm just one IT guy.
You say boundary? Which one?
Like the boundary to your district and or the schools.
That's all public.
Yeah.
And there's the voter information.
But is it all readily available?
Other districts have it posted right on their website.
Right.
It's, yeah.
I'm just trying to
We're gonna have to work with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this is good.
Okay.
Stop
Before
by later
we-
at the booth.
Before we finish, go ahead, do you have another question? Anything from you?
Well, I think it was a good discussion. I
You wanna
appreciate
give
your
them-
time.
give
Yeah.
them,
I do have business cards, and I'm up at the booth here today, so it'd be great to talk to you, and we can dive into more of these. I'd like to talk to you more about that.
And speaking of upstairs, so you're going to keep the one that says, keep this coupon. These are only good today for tonight's thing at the gold vendor showcase. For the drawings of the prizes, you'll see those things, and you'll hear my horribly nasal voice again upstairs, announcing when it's prize time, we'll be pulling tickets out. So these orangey, anything that's not a blue ticket, I think
Yeah,
orange and
anything
pink.
that's not blue.
Anything that's not blue is tonight
You might have
only.
a pink one, you might have a green one.
Right, so any of them that are not blue are for tonight's vendor showcase, gold vendor showcase prizes.
That's right.
Okay. Other than that, we'll be around. Mark and Joe and Julia, can you?
Our next comedy bit will be in
30 seconds.
Great. Thank
Let's
you.
do it. Come on in.